The celebration in the command center of Station VEX 7 had been going on for 3 hours now. Blue-tinted alcohol flowed freely among the Caltheon officers, their chitinous faces clicking with satisfaction. On the main view screen, the recorded footage played on loop. A beautiful green and blue world called Terra Nova, followed by the bright flash that had erased it from existence. Fleet Commander Zelk raised his glass again, his 4 arms spread wide in triumph. To the Confederacy, to our strength, let this be a lesson to every primitive species that dares to expand into our territory. The other officers cheered, their voices creating a harsh chorus that echoed through the metal corridors of the monitoring station. They had destroyed the human colony 6 months ago, and not a single species in the galaxy had spoken against them. The message was clear. The Caltheon Confederacy owned this sector of space, and anyone who challenged that fact would burn. In the back corner of the command center, Junior Sensor Technician Vriss did not join the celebration. Her smaller frame hunched over her console, her secondary eyes scanning through data streams while her primary eyes watched the officers drink. She had been on duty when the order came through to fire on Terra Nova. She had watched the missiles launch. She had seen the colony world crack apart like an egg, atmosphere bleeding into space, taking 3.2 million lives with it. The official report said the humans had been warned. They had established their colony in Caltheon space without permission. They had refused to evacuate when ordered. They were criminals, the report said. Pirates. A threat to galactic stability. Vriss had read the report. She had also read the actual communications logs, the ones that were not included in the official version. The humans had tried to negotiate. They had offered to pay for the land. They had begged for time to relocate. They had sent images of their children, their families, their farms and schools and hospitals. The Caltheon government had responded with a countdown timer. 72 hours. Then the missiles. Vriss shook her head and returned her attention to her console. It was not her place to question orders. She was a sensor technician, not a politician. Her job was to watch the screens and report anomalies. And right now, there was definitely an anomaly. She leaned closer to her display, her antennae twitching with confusion. A single contact, moving through Caltheon space at a speed that should have been impossible. It had appeared on her sensors 14 hours ago, jumping in at the edge of the contested zone. Since then, it had been moving in a straight line, ignoring all established transit corridors, passing through heavily patrolled military sectors without slowing down. Vriss had sent 3 reports about the contact already. Each time, her supervisor had dismissed it as a sensor echo or a data processing error. But the contact was still there, still moving, and it was getting closer. She ran another diagnostic on her equipment. Everything checked out. The sensors were working perfectly. This was not a glitch. The contact was real and it was moving fast, very fast, faster than any ship she had ever tracked before. Vriss adjusted the display, trying to get more information. The computer struggled to identify the vessel. Its energy signature was strange, fluctuating in patterns that made no sense. It was not broadcasting any identification codes. It was not responding to hails. It was simply moving forward like a blade cutting through flesh. Commander Zelk. Vriss called out, her voice barely audible over the celebration. Sir, I need you to look at something. Zelk did not hear her. He was too busy telling a story about the look on the human ambassador's face when he learned about Terra Nova. The other officers laughed, spraying droplets of blue alcohol across the command center floor. Commander, Vriss raised her voice, her tone sharp with urgency. This time Zelk heard her. He turned, his multiple eyes narrowing with irritation. What is it, technician? Can you not see we are celebrating a great victory? Sir, there is a contact moving through our space. It has been approaching for 14 hours. It is not responding to any communications. Zelk waved one of his lower arms dismissively. Pirates, smugglers, send a patrol ship to investigate. Sir, this contact is moving at 0.97 light speed. No patrol ship can intercept it. The command center grew quieter. Several officers turned to look at Vriss, their celebration interrupted. Zelk walked over to her console, his heavy footsteps echoing on the metal floor. Show me. Vriss transferred her display to the main screen. The celebration footage of Terra Nova's destruction vanished, replaced by a star map showing the Caltheon Confederacy's territory. A single red dot moved across the map, leaving a trail behind it like a drop of blood in water. What is that? Zelk asked, his voice losing some of its confident edge. Unknown, sir. It appeared at the edge of our territory 14 hours ago. It has been moving in a direct line ever since. Current heading? Vriss paused, running the calculation again to make sure. Current heading is toward Caltheon Prime, sir. A cold silence fell over the command center. Caltheon Prime was their homeworld. 17 billion Caltheon citizens lived there, packed into massive cities that covered 3 continents. It was the heart of their civilization, protected by the largest defensive fleet in known space. Zelk stared at the screen, his antennae rigid with tension. What kind of ship is it? Military, civilian? What species? Unknown, sir. The energy signature does not match anything in our database. It is broadcasting no identification. It is not using any known communication frequencies. Have we tried to intercept it? 2 patrol groups attempted intercept in the Helrich sector. The contact did not slow down or change course. It passed through their position before they could engage. Zelk's primary eyes widened. It went through? Through our patrols? Yes, sir. It did not go around. It went directly through their formation. The patrol ships reported severe sensor interference and temporary system failures, but no hostile action. By the time their systems recovered, the contact was gone. One of the other officers, a weapons specialist named Krell, stepped forward. It must be a scout ship. Or a probe. Nothing that small could threaten Caltheon Prime. How do you know it is small? Vriss asked quietly. Krell turned to her, irritation clear on his face. Because only small ships can move that fast. Everyone knows this. Vriss pulled up another display. Sir, I have been analyzing the energy readings. Whatever this is, it is not small. Based on the gravitational distortion it is creating, I estimate its mass to be at least 3 times that of a Caltheon battlecruiser. The command center erupted in noise. Officers shouted questions, argued with each other, demanded explanations. Zelk raised all 4 arms for silence. Technician Vriss, you are telling me that an unknown vessel, larger than a battlecruiser, is moving through our most secure military space at near light speed, heading directly toward our homeworld, and we have no idea what it is or who is controlling it? Yes, sir. That is exactly what I'm telling you. Zelk turned back to the main screen, his expression grim. The red dot continued its steady progress across the star map, unwavering, unstoppable. How long until it reaches Caltheon Prime? He asked. Vriss checked her calculations. At current speed, approximately 47 hours, sir. Send an immediate alert to Fleet Command. All ships in the system are to move to defensive positions around the homeworld. I want every sensor station between here and there tracking this thing. And I want linguists analyzing every communication frequency we have. Maybe we are missing its transmissions. Yes, sir. Vriss turned back to her console, her fingers moving rapidly across the controls as she sent out the alerts. The celebration was over. Officers scattered to their stations, the blue alcohol forgotten. The command center transformed from a party to a war room in seconds. For the next 30 hours, Vriss did not leave her station. She tracked the contact as it moved through Caltheon space, unchanging in speed or direction. Other sensor stations confirmed her readings. This was no glitch. This was real. Fleet Command deployed over 800 warships to defensive positions around Caltheon Prime. It was the largest military gathering in Caltheon history. Surely, Vriss thought nothing could threaten such a force. But the contact did not slow down. It did not change course. It simply kept coming. Vriss tried everything she could think of to identify the vessel. She compared its energy signature to every known species in the database. Nothing matched. She analyzed its propulsion system, trying to understand how it could maintain such speed without burning out its engines. The math did not work. According to everything she knew about physics, the ship should have torn itself apart hours ago. But it had not. It just kept coming. 17 hours before the contact would reach Caltheon Prime, something changed. The ship began broadcasting. Vriss almost missed it. The signal was faint, buried in subspace frequencies that were rarely used. But her equipment picked it up, and she immediately routed it to the linguistics team. 10 minutes later, her console lit up with an urgent message from the linguistics department. She opened it, read the first line, and felt her blood turn cold. She opened a direct channel to Commander Zelk. Sir, the contact is broadcasting a message. Zelk appeared on her screen, his face haggard from lack of sleep. What does it say? Who are they? Sir, the message is in our language. Perfect Caltheon. No accent, no errors. It is repeating on a loop. What does it say? Zelk demanded. Vriss swallowed hard, her mandibles clicking with nervousness. It says, "You killed our children. We are coming." Zelk stared at her through the screen. That is all? Yes, sir. Just those 7 words. Over and over. Our children? Zelk repeated slowly. Then understanding dawned in his eyes. Terra Nova, this is about Terra Nova. The humans, sir. I believe this is a human ship. Zelk laughed, but there was no humor in the sound. Impossible. The humans are a primitive species. They barely have interstellar travel. They cannot build something like this. Sir, what if we were wrong about them? We were not wrong. We studied them for years before we destroyed their colony. They are weak, sentimental. They waste resources on art and music and useless emotions. They are no threat to us. Vriss looked at her screen, at the red dot that continued its relentless approach. Sir, with respect, if they are no threat, why is that ship still coming? Zelk had no answer. He closed the channel without another word. Vriss sat alone at her console, watching the contact move across her screen. In 16 hours it would reach Caltheon Prime. In 16 hours they would learn whether the Caltheon Confederacy's greatest military force could stop a single human warship. She thought about Terra Nova. She thought about the 3.2 million humans who had died there. Children, families, people who had come to a new world looking for a better life. And she thought about the message playing over and over in the darkness of space. You killed our children. We are coming. Vriss pulled up the footage of Terra Nova's destruction again, watching it with new eyes. She saw the missiles strike. She saw the atmosphere burn. She saw the world die. And for the first time she wondered if perhaps the Caltheon Confederacy had made a terrible mistake. The contact continued moving forward. The message continued broadcasting. And somewhere in the command center, a party that had celebrated death was now preparing for the consequences. The humans were coming, and they were bringing their grief with them. Admiral Kresh stood on the bridge of the Caltheon dreadnought Inevitable Victory and watched 847 warships arrange themselves in defensive formation around his homeworld. It was beautiful in a way. The synchronized movements of hundreds of vessels, each one a masterpiece of military engineering, each one carrying enough firepower to crack a moon. He had been a fleet admiral for 32 years. He had fought in 7 wars. He had never lost a battle. And today he was facing a single enemy ship. It should have been ridiculous. 847 against 1. But Kresh did not feel confident. He felt something he had not experienced in decades. He felt afraid. Status report, he commanded, his voice steady despite the churning in his stomach. His tactical officer, a young male named Drex, looked up from his console. All ships in position, Admiral. Weapon systems charged, shields at maximum. We have overlapping fields of fire covering every possible approach vector. And the contact? Still approaching, sir. Speed unchanged. Distance 400,000 kilometers and closing. It will enter weapons range in approximately 12 minutes. Kresh nodded slowly. 12 minutes until they would learn the truth about this mysterious vessel. 12 minutes until they discovered whether the humans were truly as primitive as the intelligence reports claimed. He walked to the main view screen and stared at the stars. Somewhere out there beyond the range of visual sensors, the human ship was coming. The ship that had crossed 200 light-years of Caltheon space without stopping, without slowing, without acknowledging any attempt at communication. The ship that had sent that terrible message. You killed our children. We are coming. Admiral, Drex called out. Fleet Command wants to know if we should attempt communication one more time. Kresh considered it. They had been trying to contact the human vessel for the past 30 hours. Thousands of messages sent on every known frequency, in every known language. The humans had not responded to any of them. They had simply continued forward, broadcasting their 7-word message like a funeral bell. No, Kresh decided. They have made their intentions clear. They are not here to talk. Prepare to engage the moment they enter weapons range. Yes, sir. Kresh returned to his command chair and pulled up information about the humans on his personal display. There was not much. The species had only achieved faster-than-light travel 40 years ago. They had established a dozen colonies, all of them small, all of them struggling. Their military consisted of converted cargo vessels and outdated patrol craft. They had no dreadnoughts, No battle carriers. No planet-killer weapons. And yet 6 months ago, when the Caltheon Confederacy had destroyed Terra Nova, the human government had not surrendered. They had not begged for peace. They had simply gone silent. The intelligence analysts said the humans were in shock. They said the species was broken, leaderless, scattered. They said it would take decades for humanity to recover from the loss of their largest colony. But if that was true, what was this ship? Where had it come from? How had the humans built something that could move so fast, that could ignore Caltheon patrols like they did not exist? 5 minutes to weapons range, Drex announced. Kresh pushed the questions from his mind. It did not matter where the ship came from. It only mattered that it would soon be destroyed. 847 ships against one. The outcome was certain. It had to be certain. All vessels, this is Admiral Kresh, prepare to fire on my command. Concentrate all fire on the target. I want overwhelming force. I want that ship vaporized in the first salvo. Do not give them time to respond. Acknowledgements flooded in from the other ships. Weapon officers across the fleet made final adjustments to their targeting systems. Missile bays opened. Energy cannons powered up. Kinetic accelerators loaded their rounds. 2 minutes, Drex said quietly. The bridge crew fell silent. Everyone stared at their displays, watching the countdown tick away. Kresh could hear his own breathing loud in his ears. His hearts were beating too fast. He forced himself to calm down. He was a fleet admiral. He did not panic. Admiral, the sensor officer called out suddenly, her voice tight with confusion. I am reading something strange. What is it? The contact, sir. It is changing. The energy signature is increasing. It is like it is waking up. Kresh leaned forward. Waking up? What does that mean? I do not know, sir. But power readings are climbing rapidly. Whatever was dormant is now active. Shields? Yes, sir. Shields are coming online, but they are not like our shields. The energy pattern is completely different. I cannot determine their strength. 1 minute, Drex said. Kresh gripped the arms of his command chair. All ships prepare to fire. Stand by. The seconds crawled past. Every eye on the bridge was fixed on the main view screen, where the computer was projecting the estimated location of the human vessel. 30 seconds. Kresh took a deep breath. All ships target locked. Prepare to visual contact, the sensor officer shouted. The main view screen flickered and then resolved into an image that made Kresh's blood freeze. The human ship was massive. Easily twice the size of his dreadnought, it hung in space like a dark monument. Its hull was matte black, absorbing light instead of reflecting it. Strange symbols were painted along its sides in white, human writing that Kresh could not read. The ship's shape was unlike anything he had ever seen. Sharp angles, aggressive lines. Every part of it looked designed for one purpose: war. And above the writing, in letters large enough to see from thousands of kilometers away, was a single word in Caltheon: absolution. In range, Drex whispered. Kresh found his voice. All ships, fire! Fire everything! The space around Caltheon Prime erupted with violence. 847 warships opened fire simultaneously. Missiles streaked through the void, thousands of them, their engines burning bright. Energy beams lanced out in every color of the spectrum. Kinetic rounds left their launchers at impossible speeds, each one carrying enough force to crack a mountain. All of it converged on the human ship called Absolution. Kresh watched the view screen, waiting for the inevitable destruction. Waiting for the human ship to disintegrate under the onslaught. But it did not disintegrate. The Absolution's shields flared to life, and they were like nothing Kresh had ever seen. Instead of the usual blue or green bubble that Caltheon shields projected, these shields rippled like liquid metal. The missile struck and exploded, creating massive fireballs. The energy beams hit and dispersed. The kinetic rounds impacted and simply stopped, and the shields grew brighter with each hit. Report, Kresh demanded, his voice sharp with disbelief. The sensor officer stared at her console, her antennae trembling. Sir, the shields are not just deflecting our weapons. They are absorbing the energy. Every hit is making them stronger. That is impossible. I am reading what I am reading, sir. The shields are converting weapon impacts into power. They are feeding on our attack. Kresh felt the deck beneath his feet shift slightly. Warning lights appeared on tactical displays across the bridge. Admiral, Drek said, his voice shaking. Some of our ships are reporting weapon malfunctions. Missiles detonating in their launch tubes, energy cannons overloading, targeting systems going offline. How? The human ship has not fired a single shot. I do not know, sir. It is like our weapons are turning against us. On the view screen, the Absolution remained perfectly still, absorbing the continued bombardment without apparent effort. Its shields had gone from bright to blinding, illuminating the surrounding space like a small star. Then slowly, deliberately, the human ship began to move forward. It is advancing, the helm officer reported, his voice barely above a whisper. Heading directly toward the fleet formation. Kresh made a decision. All ships cease fire. Fall back to secondary positions. Recalibrate weapons and... The communication from one of the cruisers in the outer formation cut him off. Admiral, this is Captain Velk aboard the Righteous Fury. We are experiencing catastrophic systems failures. Multiple explosions in engineering. We are losing hull integrity. The transmission ended. On the tactical display, the icon representing the Righteous Fury flickered and went dark. Sir, Drek said, his voice hollow. The Righteous Fury just exploded. No external impact. It tore itself apart from the inside. More reports flooded in. Ships across the fleet were reporting failures, some minor, some catastrophic. 3 more vessels exploded. 7 others lost power completely and began drifting. Dozens reported weapon systems that were no longer responding to commands. And the Absolution had still not fired a weapon. What are they doing to us? Kresh whispered. The sensor officer looked up, her face pale. Admiral, I am detecting a massive energy buildup on the human vessel. I think they are preparing to fire. All ships evasive maneuvers. Scatter formation. The Absolution fired. It did not fire like a normal warship. There was no flash of energy beams, no swarm of missiles. Instead, the space around a dozen Caltheon vessels simply changed. Time itself seemed to stutter and bend. The targeted ships aged decades in seconds. Their hulls corroded and crumbled. Their crews died of old age and heartbeats. Systems that had been new and functional became ancient and broken. In less than 5 seconds, 12 proud warships were reduced to drifting husks of rust and decay. What was that? Kresh could barely speak. Temporal weapons, the science officer said, her voice filled with horrified awe. They aged our ships. They fast-forwarded time for just those vessels while leaving everything else normal. The Absolution fired again. This time a beam of pale light touched 6 ships in the middle formation. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the ships began to disintegrate, not explode, disintegrate. Their hulls separated into individual atoms, drifting apart like sand in wind. The crews, the weapons, the reactors, everything simply forgot how to hold together. Quantum shredders, the science officer whispered. They are causing matter to lose cohesion at the molecular level. Another attack. This time a cloud of something dark and swarming engulfed 15 ships. Kresh watched in horror as the vessels began to come apart piece by piece. But it was worse than that. The ship's communications were still active, and he could hear the screams of the crews as something ate through their hulls, their systems, their bodies. The screams lasted for 2 full minutes before the ships went silent, reduced to empty metal skeletons. Nanite swarms, the science officer said, tears running down her face. Self-replicating machines that deconstruct everything they touch. In 17 minutes, the Caltheon fleet lost 400 ships. Not damaged, not disabled, lost, gone, reduced to wreckage or dust or aged into garbage. Kresh sat in his command chair and watched his fleet die. He had trained for this his entire life. He had studied every battle tactic, every strategic principle. But nothing had prepared him for this. Nothing had prepared him to face an enemy that did not fight like anyone else. An enemy that had weapons that should not exist. An enemy that treated the greatest fleet in Caltheon history like it was nothing. Admiral, Drek said quietly, we need to retreat. We need to fall back and regroup. Kresh looked at the tactical display. Half his fleet was gone. The other half was in disarray, scattered across the system, trying desperately to stay out of range of the Absolution, and the human ship was not pursuing them. It was continuing on its original course, heading directly toward Caltheon Prime. Send the order, Kresh said, his voice defeated. All ships retreat to the inner system. Defensive positions around the homeworld. Maybe the planetary shields will slow them down. As the remaining ships fled, Kresh kept his eyes on the Absolution. The black ship moved through the debris of his fleet untouched, unstoppable. Its shields had dimmed now that the attack had stopped, but they still glowed faintly, like embers. And on its hull, that single word mocked him. Absolution. Somewhere aboard that ship, Kresh knew, were humans. The species he had been told was primitive, weak, no threat. They had been wrong. So terribly, catastrophically wrong. And now, as the Absolution approached Caltheon Prime with 17 billion civilians huddled beneath its gaze, Kresh realized the truth. The humans had not come to fight a battle. They had come to deliver judgment. The Galactic Council chamber was designed to inspire awe and cooperation. Built on the neutral station of Concordia, the circular room featured seats for representatives from 73 different species, all arranged in concentric rings around a central holographic display. The walls were transparent, offering a view of the spinning galaxy beyond. It was a place where civilizations came together to solve problems peacefully. Right now, it looked like chaos. Ambassador Telvin of the Raxian Unity was shouting at the Caltheon representative, his translator struggling to keep up with his rapid speech. The Brevix delegation was arguing with the Helrics, who were arguing with the Cortani, who were arguing with everyone. Voices in 100 languages filled the chamber, creating a wall of noise that threatened to drown out all reason. At the center of it all, displayed on the massive hologram for everyone to see, was footage of the Absolution tearing through the Caltheon Defense Fleet. Council Director Mirana, a Vexen with silver skin and too many eyes, struck her resonant staff against the floor 3 times. The sound cut through the noise like a blade, bringing a temporary silence. Order! Mirana's voice carried authority earned over 40 years of diplomatic service. We will have order in this chamber, or I will clear it and make decisions without your input. Is that understood? The delegates settled reluctantly into their seats, though the tension remained thick in the air. Mirana turned to the Caltheon representative, Ambassador Kelthax, who sat alone in his delegation section. He looked exhausted, his chitinous skin dull, his antennae drooping. Ambassador Kelthax, Mirana said, her tone formal but not unkind. Please provide an update on the current situation. Kelthax rose slowly, his forearms hanging limp at his sides. The human warship Absolution has entered orbit around Caltheon Prime. Our remaining defensive fleet has taken positions between the ship and our homeworld. But, he paused, mandibles clicking with distress. But after what happened to our outer fleet, no one believes we can stop them if they choose to attack. How many casualties so far? Asked Ambassador Chen of the Human Confederacy, his voice cutting through the chamber like ice. Kelthax turned to look at Chen, and something like fear flickered in his eyes. 413 ships destroyed. 217,462 Caltheon military personnel killed. Approximately 300,000 more injured or missing. Chen nodded slowly. He was an older human with gray hair and deep lines around his eyes. He wore a simple black suit with no decorations except for a small pin on his lapel, a green and blue circle representing Terra Nova. And how many humans did your government kill when you destroyed Terra Nova? Chen asked, his voice perfectly calm. Kelthax's antennae drooped further. 3,200,741 according to your own census data. 3,200,741, Chen repeated. Men, women, and children, scientists and farmers, teachers and artists, people who had never held a weapon in their lives, people whose only crime was building homes on a world you claimed to own. Ambassador Chen, Mirana interrupted gently. This council has already discussed the legality of the Caltheon action against Terra Nova. While many of us found it excessive, it was technically within their rights under the Territorial Sovereignty Accords. The humans were in Caltheon space without permission. Chen turned his cold gaze on Mirana. We tried to get permission for 3 years. We filled out every form. We followed every protocol. We offered payment. We offered trade agreements. We offered everything except leaving our families to die in the cold of space. The Caltheon government denied your requests, Mirana began. They denied our requests and gave us 72 hours to evacuate an entire planet. Chen's calm facade cracked, showing the fury beneath. Do you know how long it takes to evacuate 3 million people? Do you know how many ships that requires? We did not have time. We told them we did not have time. We begged for an extension. Just one more month. One more week, he pointed at Kelthax without looking at him. They started their countdown anyway. And when it reached 0, they fired. They killed everyone. Everyone. Including my granddaughter. The chamber fell silent. Chen took a breath and straightened his suit, his composure returning like a mask. So please, Council Director, do not lecture me about territorial rights and legal technicalities. My government does not care about your laws anymore. Your laws did not save our children. Mirana closed several of her eyes, a sign of distress in Vexen culture. Ambassador Chen, we understand your grief. We understand your anger. But what your ship is doing, these weapons it is using, this is beyond anything we have ever seen. How did humanity develop such technology? Chen smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. Motivation. When you have to bury 3 million of your people. When you have to tell mothers that their children are gone. When you have to admit that you failed to protect an entire world. Motivation becomes very easy to find. Where did the absolution come from? Asked Ambassador Telvin of the Raxian Unity. Our intelligence reported that humanity had no heavy warships under construction. No weapons programs that could produce anything like what we have seen. You are correct, Chen said. We had no such programs. 6 months ago, we could barely defend our own shipping lanes, but then Terra Nova died and something changed. Our scientists stopped working on commercial applications. Our engineers stopped designing colony ships. Every resource, every brilliant mind, every factory we had was redirected to a single purpose, making sure that what happened to Terra Nova would never happen again. He pulled up a holographic display, showing the absolution from multiple angles. We built this ship in 4 months. 4 months from design to deployment. We did not sleep. We did not rest. We worked every single day driven by the faces of the dead. Every person who helped build the absolution lost someone at Terra Nova. We built it from grief and rage and determination. 4 months, Mirana whispered. That is impossible. A ship that size should take years. Nothing is impossible when you are properly motivated, Chen said flatly. The absolution has exactly one purpose, to ensure the galaxy understands that humanity will not be victims ever again. By committing genocide? Kelthax found his voice standing up in his section. By destroying an entire species? Is that your justice? Chen finally looked directly at the Caltheon ambassador. Tell me, Kelthax, when your government was debating whether to destroy Terra Nova, did anyone argue for mercy? Did anyone suggest a peaceful solution? Did anyone think about the children who would die? Kelthax's mandibles moved, but no sound came out. I see, Chen said. So you made your decision with full knowledge of what it would mean. You chose to kill civilians. You chose to make an example of us. You chose to show the galaxy that the Caltheon Confederacy was strong and humans were weak. He turned to address the entire chamber. Well, you succeeded. You showed the galaxy what you were capable of. And now we are showing the galaxy what we are capable of. And I assure you, we are far more creative than you ever imagined. The holographic display changed, showing real-time footage from Caltheon Prime. The absolution hung in orbit, dark and terrible, while below it, billions of Caltheon civilians looked up at their sky and wondered if they would live to see tomorrow. The absolution has not fired on the planet, Mirana observed. Why? If humanity truly wants revenge, why not destroy Caltheon Prime as they destroyed Terra Nova? Chen's expression softened slightly, showing something that might have been pain, because Captain Vasquez, the commanding officer of the absolution, understands something your military apparently does not. She understands the difference between justice and genocide. She lost her daughter at Terra Nova, her only child, a girl who loved music and wanted to be a doctor, a girl who died screaming as the atmosphere burned. He paused, letting the image sink in. Captain Vasquez could destroy Caltheon Prime with a thought. She has the weapons. She has the anger. But she also has restraint. She has mercy. 2 qualities your government did not show when they murdered her daughter. Then what does she want? Kelthax asked desperately. What will make the humans leave? I do not know, Chen admitted. She is not taking orders from our government anymore. She went rogue after Terra Nova, took the absolution before it was officially commissioned, and left Earth without permission. We have been trying to contact her for 6 months. She does not respond. This caused a new wave of concerned muttering in the chamber. You are telling us, Mirana said slowly, that the single most powerful warship in the galaxy is controlled by a human who has lost everything and is operating outside your government's authority. Yes. And you have no way to stop her? We could not stop her even if we wanted to, Chen said. The absolution was designed by people who knew what they were building. It has no remote shutdown codes, no external override systems. Captain Vasquez is in complete control of that ship and she answers to no one. This is madness, breathed Ambassador Telvin. One person should not have such power. One government should not have the power to erase 3 million lives without consequences. Chen shot back. But here we are. You all sat in this chamber 6 months ago and watched the footage of Terra Nova burning. You all had the chance to condemn the Caltheon government, to impose sanctions, to demand reparations, to do anything that might show humanity that the galaxy cared about justice. He looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of delegates from dozens of species, and you did nothing. You gave speeches about territorial sovereignty. You talked about setting dangerous precedents. You worried about offending the Caltheon Confederacy because they are powerful and humans are weak. So we learned a valuable lesson that day. We learned that in this galaxy, justice only exists if you are strong enough to take it yourself. Mirana struck her resonant staff again, though more gently this time. What would you have us do, Ambassador Chen? How can we resolve this situation? Chen smiled again, and this time there was no warmth in it at all. I would suggest you contact Captain Vasquez and ask her yourself. But I will give you some advice. Do not insult her by suggesting she show mercy to the people who killed her daughter. Do not ask her to walk away in the name of peace, and definitely do not threaten her with military action, because we all saw what happened to the last military force that tried to stop her. He sat down, his posture making it clear he was done speaking. Mirana turned to the holographic display which still showed the absolution in orbit above Caltheon Prime. Open a channel to the human vessel. All frequencies. The communication officer worked for several minutes before shaking his head. Council Director, the absolution is not responding to hails. Keep trying, Mirana ordered. For 3 hours the council tried to establish contact with Captain Vasquez. They sent messages in every human language. They broadcast on emergency frequencies. They even had Ambassador Chen personally record a plea for communication. Nothing worked. The absolution remained silent, hanging in orbit like a sword waiting to fall. Finally, just as the council was about to adjourn in frustration, the communication officer gasped. We have a response. Audio only. Patching it through now. The chamber fell silent as a human voice filled the air. It was a woman's voice, calm and cold, speaking perfect galactic common. This is Captain Elena Vasquez of the human warship Absolution. I have received your messages. I appreciate your concern. However, this is a matter between humanity and the Caltheon Confederacy. The rest of the galaxy made their position clear when Terra Nova died. You chose to do nothing. You chose to watch. So now you get to watch again. Captain Vasquez, Mirana said quickly, we understand your pain. We understand your need for justice. But surely there is a way to resolve this without more bloodshed? There was a long pause. When Vasquez spoke again, her voice was softer, almost sad. Director, do you have children? Mirana blinked several of her eyes. Yes, 3 offspring. Imagine them dead. Imagine them burning. Imagine knowing that you could have saved them if you had just been stronger, just been faster, just been better. Can you imagine that? Yes, Mirana whispered. Now imagine the people who killed them are going about their lives like nothing happened. Imagine they are celebrating their victory. Imagine they feel no guilt, no remorse, no regret. Can you imagine that? Yes. That is where I live now, Director. That is where I exist every single day, in a place where my daughter is dead and the people who killed her do not even remember her name. So please do not ask me to show mercy. Do not ask me to walk away. Do not ask me to let this go. What will you do? Kelthax asked, his voice breaking. There was another pause. When Vasquez spoke again, her voice had hardened back into iron. You will see. The galaxy wanted to watch. So watch. The transmission ended. In the council chamber, 73 species sat in silence, staring at the image of the absolution. And on Caltheon Prime, 17 billion people looked at their sky and prayed to gods that did not seem to be listening. Captain Elena Vasquez stood alone on the bridge of the absolution, staring at the planet below. Caltheon Prime filled the view screen, a world of blue oceans and green continents, cities that glittered like jewels, clouds that drifted across the surface in peaceful patterns. From orbit it looked beautiful. It looked alive. It looked like Terra Nova had looked 6 months ago. Behind her, the bridge was quiet. Her crew of 147 humans moved through their duties with practiced efficiency. Their faces set in expressions she knew well: grief, anger, determination. Every single person aboard the Absolution had lost someone at Terra. Nova, family, friends, lovers, children. They were all here for the same reason. They were all here to make sure those deaths meant something. "Captain," her tactical officer said quietly. Lieutenant Marcus Webb had lost his wife and 2 sons at Terra Nova. He had volunteered for the Absolution's crew within hours of its construction beginning. "All systems are ready. Weapons fully charged. We are in optimal firing position." Vasquez did not turn around. "Thank you, Marcus." She pulled up a display on her personal screen showing the estimated population distribution across Caltheon Prime. 17,400,000,000 civilians. Children going to school. Adults working in offices and factories. Elderly people sitting in parks feeding whatever passed for birds on this world. Innocent people. People who had not fired the missiles at Terra Nova. People who maybe did not even agree with their government's decision. Just like the people of Terra Nova had been innocent. Her personal communicator chimed. She glanced at it, seeing a message from Ambassador Chen. She had received dozens of messages from him over the past weeks. She had ignored all of them. She knew what he would say: "Come home. Let the government handle this. Do not throw your life away. Do not become what they are." But Chen did not understand. You could not become something you already were. The moment Terra Nova died, the moment she heard her daughter's last message cut off by static and fire, Elena Vasquez had stopped being a starship captain and had become something else. Something darker. Something necessary. She opened another file on her display. Audio recordings from Terra Nova's last hours. She did not listen to them. She had heard them so many times she had them memorized, but she looked at the timestamps. The desperate calls for evacuation ships, the pleas for mercy, the realization in those final minutes that no help was coming. Her daughter's voice was in there. Message timestamp 2347.1273 minutes before the missiles struck. A simple message: "Mom, I'm scared. They say the countdown is almost over. They say we're going to die. I just wanted to tell you that I love you. I wanted to tell you that I'm not angry. You did everything you could. I know you did. I love you." The recording ended there. The missiles had struck. "Captain," her science officer called out. Dr. Sarah Chen, no relation to the ambassador, had been one of Terra Nova's leading researchers before taking a sabbatical to visit family on Earth. She had survived because of a vacation. Everyone she had worked with for 10 years had burned. The Caltheon government is broadcasting another surrender offer. They are willing to agree to any terms. "Replay it," Vasquez ordered. The voice of Caltheon Premier Thrax filled the bridge. He sounded desperate. "Captain Vasquez, please. I am begging you. Our government was wrong. We were wrong. We should not have destroyed Terra Nova. We should have negotiated. We should have shown mercy. But punishing billions of innocent civilians for the decisions of a few leaders, that is not justice. That is revenge. Please, I am begging you, do not do this." The transmission ended. Vasquez laughed, a bitter sound. "He is begging. Now he begs. Where were his begs when we asked for time to evacuate? Where was his mercy when our children were dying?" She turned to face her crew. They were watching her, waiting. They trusted her. They believed in her. They had followed her across the galaxy to this moment. "Premier Thrax is correct about one thing," she said, her voice carrying to every corner of the bridge. "Punishing billions of innocent people for the decisions of their government would not be justice. It would be genocide. It would make us exactly like them." She saw relief flicker across some faces, confusion across others. "So I am not going to destroy Caltheon Prime," Vasquez continued. "I am not going to kill their civilians. I am not going to make their children pay for the sins of their parents, Captain," Marcus asked carefully. "Then what are we doing here?" Vasquez smiled, and it was not a kind expression. "We are going to give them something worse than death. We are going to give them memory." "Sarah, initiate remembrance protocol." Dr. Chen hesitated. "Captain, are you sure? Once we start this, there is no stopping it. The changes will be permanent. I am sure. Begin." Chen nodded and turned to her console. Her fingers moved across the controls, entering the commands that would activate systems the Absolution's designers had built specifically for this moment. Below, on Caltheon Prime, strange things began to happen. In the capital city of Kelthera, a massive monument to military victory suddenly dissolved. The stone and metal simply broke down into their component atoms and drifted away on the wind. The millions of Caltheon who witnessed it stared in horror, not understanding what was happening. Then, in the exact same location, something new began to form. Atoms pulled together. Matter organized itself into new shapes. In less than 5 minutes, where the military monument had stood, there was now something different. It was a memorial, but not a Caltheon memorial. The names were wrong. The faces were wrong. The writing was in a language most Caltheon could not read. It was a memorial to Terra Nova, to the humans who had died there. 3,200,741 names etched in quantum-stable crystal that would last for 10,000 years. And above the names, a simple message in both human and Caltheon. We lived, we loved. We died because others feared our existence. Across Caltheon Prime, the same thing happened to every military monument, every statue celebrating conquest, every memorial to Caltheon's superiority. They dissolved and reformed into memorials for Terra Nova. But that was just the beginning. Every screen on Caltheon Prime, every computer, every communicator, every display of any kind, suddenly activated. The Caltheon tried to shut them off, but they would not respond. Instead, they all showed the same thing, faces, human faces. 3,200,741 of them. They appeared in sequence, each one displayed for exactly 3 seconds. A name, an age, a brief description of who they were. Sarah Martinez, age 7. She loved drawing pictures of her family. James Okonkwo, age 42. He was a teacher who believed every child deserved an education. Ming Jiang, age 65. She was a grandmother who made the best dumplings anyone had ever tasted, on and on. For hours, for days. Every single person who had died at Terra Nova, their faces displayed for the entire planet to see. The Caltheon tried to turn off their devices. They tried to look away, but the images were everywhere. On their streets, on their buildings, projected in the sky itself. There was no escaping the faces of the dead, and with each face came a voice. The Absolution's AI had analyzed every piece of data from Terra Nova, every recording, every communication, and had constructed voice profiles for each person who had died. Now those voices spoke. My name was Michael Foster. I was 16 years old. I wanted to be a pilot. I died before I could graduate school. My name was Amara Okafor. I was 28 years old. I had a daughter who lived on Earth. I never got to say goodbye. My name was Robert Chin. I was 53 years old. I had just opened a bakery. I died trying to help my neighbors reach the evacuation ships that never came. Premier Thrax appeared on the Caltheon news networks, trying to calm his people. This is a psychological attack. Turn off your devices, go inside. This will pass, but it did not pass. The voices continued. The faces continued. Day after day, the people of Caltheon Prime were forced to confront the reality of what their government had done. On the Absolution, Vasquez watched the monitoring displays. She could see the chaos on the planet below. She could see the Caltheon struggling to cope with the constant bombardment of human faces and voices. Some were angry. Some were defiant. But many, she noticed, were beginning to cry. Captain, Marcus said quietly, we are receiving a transmission from the planet. It is not from the government. It is from a civilian broadcast station. Play it. A Caltheon face appeared on the screen. It was a female, young, her antennae drooping with distress. She was speaking directly to a camera, her voice shaking. My name is Vriss. I am a sensor technician. I was the one who first detected your ship approaching. I am the one who has been tracking you since you entered our space. She paused, mandibles clicking with emotion. I was also on duty when the order came to fire on Terra Nova. I watched the missiles launch. I watched your world die. And I did nothing to stop it. Tears were running down her chitinous face. Vasquez had not known Caltheon could cry. I am sorry, Vriss continued. I know those words mean nothing. I know sorry does not bring back the dead. But I need to say it. I need you to know that not all of us agreed with what was done. Not all of us celebrated. Some of us have been living with the guilt for 6 months knowing we were part of something terrible. She held up a data pad, showing something to the camera. This is a list of everyone in our military who questioned the order to fire on Terra Nova, everyone who argued for mercy, everyone who said we should give the humans more time. Do you know how many names are on this list? She turned the pad around. Vasquez could see the list. It was long. Hundreds of names. Maybe thousands. We tried, Vriss said, her voice breaking. We tried to stop it, but we were not strong enough. We were not brave enough. We were cowards, and now your faces haunt us. Your voices haunt us. Your dead haunt us. And we deserve it. We deserve every moment of this. The transmission ended. Vasquez stared at the blank screen for a long moment. Then she opened a ship-wide channel. All hands prepare to initiate Phase 2 of Remembrance Protocol. Captain, Sarah said carefully, Phase 2 is the military strikes. Are you certain? Vasquez pulled up the targeting data. Not cities, not civilian areas, only military installations, weapons factories, shipyards, military academies, command centers, every piece of infrastructure the Caltheon military used to build and maintain its power. I am certain. We promised the galaxy they would watch. So let them watch. Fire. The Absolution's weapons came online. But these were not the exotic weapons that had destroyed the Outer Fleet. These were conventional, precise, devastating. 17 minutes. That was all it took. 17 minutes to reduce the Caltheon military infrastructure to ashes. Not a single civilian casualty. Not one hospital struck. Not one school damaged. Just cold, precise destruction of the ability to make war. When it was over, Vasquez opened a channel to Caltheon Prime, to the entire planet, to the entire galaxy. My name is Captain Elena Vasquez. 6 months ago, your government killed my daughter. They killed 3,200,741 human beings. They did this to make a point. They did this to show the galaxy that they were strong and we were weak. She paused, looking at the planet on her view screen. I could destroy your world. I could kill every one of you. I could make you feel the pain we felt, but I am not going to do that. Do you know why? The galaxy listened. Because death is easy. Death is escape. I am not giving you escape. I am giving you memory. For the rest of your lives, you will wake up and see our faces. You will go to work and hear our voices. Your children will grow up learning the names of our dead. Your monuments will honor our victims. Your history will remember our loss. She leaned forward, her voice dropping to something cold and final. You wanted to make an example of us. Consider it done. You are the example now. You are the civilization that murdered millions of innocents and paid the price. Every species in this galaxy will look at you and remember. Every time someone thinks about attacking civilians, they will remember Caltheon Prime. They will remember the Absolution. They will remember that humanity does not forget. She closed the channel. Marcus, she said quietly, set course for the Outer Rim. We are done here. Yes, Captain. As the Absolution prepared to leave orbit, Vasquez took one last look at Caltheon Prime. The planet was covered in memorials now, covered in the faces of human dead. It would stay that way. The quantum-etched monuments were permanent. The AI broadcasts would continue for years. The Caltheon would live. But they would never forget what they had done. And that, Vasquez thought, was a fitting punishment. The Absolution turned away from Caltheon Prime and accelerated into the darkness. Behind it, 17 billion people stared at the faces of the dead and began to understand the price of genocide. 6 months had passed since the Absolution left Caltheon Prime. 6 months since Captain Elena Vasquez had shown the galaxy what human justice looked like. The universe had changed in those 6 months. Changed in ways both subtle and profound. In the council chamber on Concordia Station, the delegates gathered for what had become known as the Terra Nova Accord ceremony. The chamber looked different now. Where there had once been artwork celebrating the achievements of various civilizations, there were now holographic memorials to victims of war crimes throughout galactic history. Terra Nova's memorial was the largest, positioned where everyone could see it as they entered. Council Director Mirana stood at the center podium, her silver Vexen skin reflecting the soft lights. Before her was a document that had taken 6 months of debate, argument, and compromise to create. She looked out at the assembled delegates and began to speak. Today we formalize what we all learned 6 months ago, that the taking of civilian lives as a political or military strategy is not merely wrong, it is an invitation for consequences that we as a galactic community cannot control and should not tolerate. She gestured to the document floating in holographic form above the podium. The Terra Nova Accords establish several principles. First, any military action against civilian populations is now classified as a crime against sentience, punishable by the full force of this council. Second, any species that commit such crimes will face mandatory disarmament and reparations. Third, and most importantly, humanity has been granted authority to respond to civilian massacres committed by any species against any species. This last point caused some shifting in seats. It was unprecedented. One species given authority to act as enforcer for the entire galaxy. Ambassador Telvin of the Raxian Unity stood. Council Director, I want to be clear. Are we really giving humans permission to do to others what they did to Caltheon Prime? Mirana's expression was grave. We are not giving them permission. We are acknowledging reality. The absolution still exists. Captain Vasquez still commands it, and she has made it clear that she will intervene in any situation where civilians are being targeted. We can either work with her or pretend we have some authority we clearly do not possess. Where is the absolution now? Asked a delegate from the Cortani system. Patrolling the outer rim, Mirana answered. Captain Vasquez has not returned to human space. She considers her mission ongoing. In the back of the chamber, Ambassador Chen sat quietly. He wore his black suit with the Terra Nova pin. He had not spoken during the debate over the Accords. There was nothing left to say. His government had tried to recall Vasquez dozens of times. She had ignored every order, every plea, every threat. The absolution answered to no one. I call for the vote, Mirana announced. All in favor of ratifying the Terra Nova Accords? One by one, the delegates voted. Some eagerly, some reluctantly, but they all voted the same way. 73 species. 73 votes in favor. 0 against. The Accords were law. Far from the council chamber on Caltheon Prime, life had adapted to the new reality. The faces still appeared on screens every day. The voices still spoke the names of the dead. The quantum-etched memorial still stood in every city, impossible to remove, impossible to ignore. Vriss walked through the memorial plaza in the capital city. It had once been Victory Square, a place where military parades celebrated Caltheon's strength. Now it was covered in human names and faces. Thousands of Caltheon came here every day. Some came to protest. Some came to mourn. Some, like Vriss, came to try to understand. She stopped in front of a particular name. Sarah Vasquez, age 17. The holographic display showed a young human girl with dark hair and bright eyes, smiling at something off camera. Below the image was a brief biography. Sarah loved music. She played something called a violin. She wanted to become a doctor and help people. She died 73 minutes after the Caltheon missiles struck, when the medical shelter where she was volunteering lost structural integrity. She was trying to save a child when the ceiling collapsed. Vriss read the biography every day. She had read hundreds of them, thousands. She needed to know them. She needed to understand what her government had taken from the universe. They still haunt you. Vriss turned to find an elderly human woman standing beside her. The woman wore simple clothes and leaned on a walking stick. Her hair was white, her face lined with age and grief. I am sorry, Vriss said in halting human standard. She had been learning the language. It seemed necessary. I do not mean to intrude on your memorial. You are not intruding. The woman looked up at Sarah's face. I come here every week. I lost family at Terra Nova. Coming here, seeing the names, hearing the stories, it helps somehow. Vriss's antennae twitched with surprise. You are from Terra Nova? You survived? I was in the orbital station when the missile struck. Medical transport. We saw it happen. We saw the planet burn. We were too far away to help. The woman's voice was quiet, steady, carrying the weight of months of grief. Afterward, I came here. I wanted to see what Captain Vasquez had done. I wanted to understand. And do you? Understand? The woman smiled sadly. I understand that Captain Vasquez gave us something no one expected. Not revenge. Not justice. Something else, memory. She gestured at the memorial around them. On Earth we have a saying. Those who forget the past are condemned to repeat it. The captain made sure no one will forget. Not us, not you. Not anyone. Vriss looked at the thousands of faces surrounding them. Is it working? Do you think what she did will prevent this from happening again? I do not know. But I know that every species in the galaxy watched what happened here. They saw what we lost. They saw what you lost. They saw the price of casual cruelty. The woman turned to Vriss. What do you think? You are Caltheon. Has it changed anything? Vriss was quiet for a long moment. It has changed everything. Our military is gone. Our government is restructuring. Our entire society is questioning everything we thought we knew about our place in the galaxy. She looked at Sarah's face. And we cannot escape the memory of what we did. Every day we see your faces. Every day we hear your voices. It is torture. It is punishment. And it is deserved. The woman reached out and touched Vriss's arm gently. My name is Margaret Chen. My granddaughter died at Terra Nova. She was 6 years old. Vriss felt her eyes filling with tears. I am so sorry. I know you are. I can see it. Margaret squeezed her arm. That is why the captain's plan is working. Because people like you exist. People who can see what was done and feel the weight of it. People who will make sure it never happens again. They stood together in silence for a while. A Caltheon and a human, surrounded by the faces of the dead. In another part of the galaxy, the Brevik's Dominion was having an emergency council meeting. Grand Dominus Krell stood before his military advisors. His scaled face twisted with frustration. Explain to me again why we are not proceeding with the Helrix operation. His chief military strategist, a younger Brevix named Salax, pulled up a holographic display. It showed the Absolution tearing through the Caltheon fleet. Sir, we have analyzed every second of footage from the Caltheon incident. The humans have weapons we cannot defend against. Temporal disruptors, quantum shredders, molecular nanites, and that is just what they showed us. We have to assume they have more. The Absolution is one ship, Krell growled. One ship commanded by a rogue captain. We have a fleet of thousands. Yes, sir. And the Caltheon had 847 ships. The Absolution destroyed 400 of them in 17 minutes without taking damage. Solix brought up another display, this one showing economic data. But the weapons are not even the worst part, sir. Look at what happened to the Caltheon economy. Trade sanctions from 70 species. Required reparations that will take decades to pay. Complete military disarmament. They went from being a major power to a supervised territory in 6 months. He pulled up another image. The memorials covering Caltheon Prime. And this. Every day their people see the faces of the humans they killed. Every day they are reminded of what they did. It is breaking their society. Suicide rates are up 300%. Birth rates have dropped by half. The psychological damage alone is worse than if the humans had just destroyed the planet. Krell stared at the images. He had been planning to attack the Helrix colonies for 2 years. The Helrix had resources the Breviks needed. Attacking their civilian settlements would have been the fastest way to force surrender. Would have been. Cancel the operation, Krell said finally. Relief flooded Solix's face. Yes, sir. A wise decision. Do not tell me it is wise. Tell me it is necessary. Tell me we have no choice because one human with a ship full of grief has somehow become the enforcer for the entire galaxy. Yes, sir. That is exactly what happened. Krell dismissed his advisors and sat alone in his command chamber. He pulled up the famous transmission from Captain Vasquez, the one every species had heard. Death is easy. Death is escape. I am not giving you escape. I am giving you memory. He had heard it dozens of times. Each time it sent a chill through his scales. Not because of the words themselves, but because of what they represented. The humans had found something worse than weapons. They had found a way to make punishment eternal. They had found a way to weaponize conscience itself. The Helrix colonies would be safe. The Breviks would find other ways to get the resources they needed. Ways that did not involve dead civilians and eternal memorials. Because no one, Krell realized, wanted to be the next example. On the bridge of the Absolution, Captain Elena Vasquez stood at her command station and looked at the star map. The ship was near the edge of known space, patrolling the regions where conflicts were most likely to occur. "Captain," Marcus said from the tactical station, "we are receiving a transmission from Fleet Command. They are ordering us to return to Earth. Acknowledged." "Delete the message." "Yes, Captain." It was the 47th recall order she had ignored. Earth wanted her home. They wanted to decommission the Absolution. They wanted to pretend the galaxy could go back to normal. But Vasquez knew better. The galaxy would never be normal again. She had changed it. Changed it permanently. "Sarah," she called to her science officer. "What is the status of the Remembrance satellites?" Dr. Chen pulled up a display. "All functional, Captain. We have deployed them in orbit around Caltheon Prime, Terra Nova's ruins, and 14 other locations throughout the galaxy. They are broadcasting continuously. The memorials remain stable." Good. The Remembrance satellites were Vasquez's lasting gift to the galaxy. They ensured that even if the Absolution was destroyed, even if she died, the memorials would continue. The faces would keep appearing. The voices would keep speaking. For centuries, for millennia, no one would forget Terra Nova. "Captain," her communications officer said, "we are receiving a message from an unusual source. It is from Caltheon Prime, civilian frequency, a woman named Vriss." Vasquez froze. She knew that name. Vriss had been the sensor technician who first detected the Absolution. She had also been the one to broadcast that apology 6 months ago. "Play it." Vriss's face appeared on the screen. She looked older, more tired, but her eyes were clear. "Captain Vasquez, I do not expect you to respond to this message. I do not expect you to care. But I needed to tell you something. The memorials you created are working. My people are changing. We are teaching our children about Terra Nova. We are learning human standard in our schools. We are trying to understand what we did and why it was wrong." She paused, mandibles clicking with emotion. "I know this does not bring back your daughter. I know this does not erase your pain. But I wanted you to know that your message was received. We will never forget. I promise you we will never forget." The transmission ended. Vasquez stared at the blank screen for a long time. Then she turned to her crew. "Plot a course to the Carax sector. There are reports of tensions there. Civilian populations are at risk." "Yes, Captain." As the Absolution turned toward its next destination, Vasquez allowed herself a small moment of reflection. She had not saved her daughter. She had not prevented Terra Nova. But maybe, just maybe, she was preventing the next Terra Nova, the next massacre, the next tragedy. And if that was her life's work now, she would accept it. In the council chamber, the delegates were leaving after ratifying the accords. Ambassador Chen remained behind, looking at Terra Nova's memorial. After a moment, Mirana joined him. "Your government is not happy with Captain Vasquez," she observed. "No, they are not. They wanted a different kind of justice, something cleaner, something that did not involve a rogue captain with ultimate weapons. But you understand her." Chen smiled sadly. "I lost my granddaughter at Terra Nova too. A little girl named Lisa. She loved to paint. She would have been 7 years old next month." He touched the Terra Nova pin on his lapel. Elena Vasquez did what she thought was right. She made sure Lisa and all the others would not be forgotten.
"How can I condemn her for that?"
Mirana was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "The galaxy is afraid of her." "Good. Fear prevents stupidity. Fear makes people think twice before killing children. If the price of peace is that everyone fears one human warship, I will take that trade. What if she becomes what she fought against? What if the Absolution becomes an instrument of oppression?" Chen turned to look at Mirana. "Then we will deal with that problem when it comes. But right now, for the first time in centuries, civilian casualties in galactic conflicts have dropped to nearly zero. Species are negotiating instead of attacking. The strong are thinking twice before crushing the weak. That is because of Elena Vasquez. That is because every would-be conqueror looks at the sky and wonders if the Absolution is watching." He started to leave, then paused. "You asked what if she becomes a tyrant? I ask, what if she is exactly what this galaxy needed?" Mirana had no answer. On the outer rim, the Absolution continued its patrol. Silent, watchful, waiting. And across the galaxy, on 1,000 worlds, people looked at their screens and saw the faces of Terra Nova's dead. They learned the names. They heard the stories. They remembered. A Helric's mother teaching her children about Sarah Vasquez, the girl who wanted to be a doctor. a Cortani historian documenting every name, every face, preserving them for future generations. A Iraqian artist creating sculptures in memory of people she had never met but could never forget. The memorials were everywhere now. Not just on Caltheon Prime, but spreading across the galaxy like seeds planted in soil. Species were building their own memorials to Terra Nova. Museums were opening. Schools were teaching about the massacre and what it meant. Terra Nova had become more than a tragedy. It had become a lesson, a warning, a promise. Never again. On a small colony world in the fringe territories, two species that had been on the brink of war sat down to negotiate instead. The mediator pointed to a holographic image of the absolution hanging in the room. "That is the alternative," she said simply. "Talk, or explain to your children why the humans came." They talked. In the military academy on the Vexen homeworld, young cadets studied the Battle of Caltheon Prime. Not for its tactics, though those were revolutionary. Not for its weapons, though those were terrifying. They studied it for its restraint. For the moment when Captain Vasquez had the power to destroy 17 billion lives and chose not to. "This," their instructor said, pointing at the frozen image of Vasquez on the bridge, "is what separates soldiers from murderers. This is what separates justice from genocide. Power without restraint is not strength. It is weakness. Remember that." The cadets remembered. Aboard the Absolution, Vasquez sat in her ready room, surrounded by the quiet hum of the ship. On her desk was a single photograph, printed on actual paper in the old human tradition. It showed a young woman with dark hair and bright eyes holding a violin, smiling at the camera. Sarah Vasquez touched the photograph gently. "I did it, baby," she whispered. "I made sure they remember you. I made sure your death meant something. I made sure no other mother has to feel what I feel." There was no answer. There would never be an answer. Sarah was gone, burned away in fire and fury 6 months before her 18th birthday. But her face lived on. Her name lived on. Her story lived on 1,000 worlds, in 1,000,000 memories. In the collective conscience of an entire galaxy, Vasquez stood and walked back to the bridge. Her crew was waiting, watching the sensors, ready for the next crisis, the next conflict, the next moment when someone would need a reminder about the cost of violence. "Status report," she ordered. "All systems nominal, Captain. Patrol route is clear. No conflicts detected in our sector." "Good. Maintain course and speed. Keep scanning." "Yes, Captain." The Absolution moved through the darkness, a black ship against black space, nearly invisible except for the faint glow of its engines. Somewhere behind it, memorials stood eternal. Somewhere ahead, the next crisis was waiting. And throughout the galaxy, beings of every species, every culture, every world, looked at the sky and thought about a human warship named Absolution. They thought about the faces of the dead. They thought about the price of cruelty, and they chose differently, not all of them, not every time. The galaxy was still dangerous, still violent, still full of those who would hurt others for power or profit. But enough chose differently. Enough paused before pulling the trigger. Enough remembered Terra Nova, and decided that some prices were too high to pay. A Caltheon child asked her mother about the human faces that appeared on their screens every morning. The mother knelt down and explained, carefully and honestly, about what their government had done. About the mistakes they had made. About the importance of never forgetting. "But why do we have to remember?" the child asked. "It makes everyone sad." The mother touched her daughter's face gently. "We remember because forgetting would be worse. We remember because 3 million people died, and they deserve to be mourned. We remember because if we forget, we might do it again. Do you understand?" The child nodded slowly. "I think so. We remember so we can be better. Yes, little one, we remember so we can be better." And that, in the end, was what Captain Elena Vasquez had given the galaxy. Not vengeance. Not even justice, not really. She had given them a mirror. A reflection of their worst impulses and their capacity for change. She had given them the faces of the dead and the burden of memory. She had given them a choice. Learn from this, or face the Absolution again. Most were choosing to learn. 6 months after the Absolution left Caltheon Prime, violent conflicts involving civilian casualties had dropped by 78% across the galaxy. 6 months after Elena Vasquez showed the universe what human grief looked like, the strong were thinking twice before crushing the weak. It was not perfect. It was not paradise, but it was better. And in the cold darkness of space, a black warship continued its eternal patrol, carrying the memory of 3,200,741 souls who had died asking only for a chance to live. They were gone, but they would never be forgotten. The Absolution would make sure of that, and the galaxy, watching that dark ship move through the stars, finally understood what humanity had tried to teach them from the beginning. That every life mattered, that every death had meaning. That mercy was not weakness and strength was not cruelty. That children should be protected, not targeted. That colonies should be negotiated with, not destroyed. That the weak deserved compassion, not contempt. These were human values. And now, enforced by human weapons and human will, they were becoming galactic values. Not through conquest, not through domination, through memory, through the eternal presence of the dead, through the simple truth that some sins could never be washed away, only remembered and learned from. Captain Elena Vasquez stood on her bridge, looked at the stars ahead, and allowed herself the smallest of smiles. Her daughter would never come home. Terra Nova would never be rebuilt. The dead would never return, but they would never be forgotten either. And that, she thought, was a kind of immortality. The best kind, the only kind that mattered. The Absolution moved forward into the darkness, carrying its cargo of grief and hope and determination. Behind it, a changed galaxy slowly learned to be better. And somewhere in the eternal night, 3,200,741 voices whispered in unison, "We lived. We mattered. Remember us, the galaxy was listening and it would never stop."